I'm the type of guy that enjoys looking at systems and breaking them down and seeing exactly how they work. I especially love doing this for non-scientific systems and narratives. One of my favorite book series is Mistborn for this very reason. I highly recommend it. It's a great series of books. But scientific stuff also interests me as well. I also enjoy Star Trek for the very same reasons. Various different stories have these kinds of systems that are very intriguing to me, and I love breaking them down and understanding them, but unfortunately in a lot of narratives, they just kind of happen and they don't really have an explanation and they don't really want one, and as such the process becomes a little bit anti-cathartic and it becomes kind of frustrating to deal with. However, one game developer, Blizzard, has made surprisingly consistent worlds, and while they haven't really explained some of their systems in detail before, I'm going to take on the challenge now. I'm going to look at Warcraft specifically and see how exactly the magic works. So to start off, we have a couple of things that we need to go over before we go into the details of magic. First is the concept of mana. Mana is a resource that's used by every single spellcaster in the universe. What exactly is mana? Think of it as pure energy. Some of it comes in a solid form, as in crystals, some of it comes in a liquid form in lakes, some of it in a gaseous form, just in the atmosphere. I would hazard to say that a majority of the mana in the universe is in the atmosphere of the various planets, but it's hard to know for certain. So since mana is used by every single type of spellcaster, what differentiates one kind of spell from another? Well, that would be how exactly this energy is used, and sometimes where the energy comes from in general. Some spellcasters use additional forms of resources beyond mana to accomplish their spells. We'll go into that when it comes up. There's 6 main types of magic in the Warcraft universe. There's Arcane, Fel, Holy, Shadow, Nature, and Elemental magic. These are mostly differentiated in how mana is used. Arcane magic is created when mana is changed from one state to another, like from a crystal to a liquid, or from a liquid to a gas, or from a gas to a plasma. I would say that the majority of spells are transferring mana from a gas to a plasma in how the effects end up looking. However, for the case of ice magic, it actually goes from a gas to a solid. Fel magic uses mana and various other resources to create fission. This is shown in the pure destructive power of a lot of Fel magic and how a lot of Fel constructs look and operate. Many things involving Fel magic will look like they're burning or smoldering. This is due to the atoms in the mana being split apart and releasing massive amounts of energy as they do so. Fission has been connected in our world with things like explosions and steam, which can then create electricity. Holy magic is based in light, and light mainly comes from sun. While light magic does have a solar element, as light itself can be used as a resource in creatures to create more magic, the core of holy magic is in the creation of light, which in stars is fusion. It is important to note that both fission and fusion magic have been used to create spaceships and higher amounts of tech, including automatons. This is also true in our reality as well. Shadow magic is harder to place down to a specific kind of scientific process. From what I can tell, shadow magic is created when something goes into entropy, and the resulting energy that leaves is then harnessed by the caster. Basically, it's forced entropy on an object instead of the usual entropy that happens over time. Nature magic is less about creating something and more about rearranging what's already there to fit the process that you are bolstering. Because of this, the actual energy that is required is much lower and can come directly from the caster themselves, depending on the amount that's required at the time. Elemental magic comes from a more spiritual place. Literally. Elemental magic focuses on spirits influencing the physical world in order to create new effects. This is shown directly when orcs were forsaken by the elements when they attacked the innocent Draenei, and then the elemental magic that they used would no longer work for them. The spirits that they followed no longer acted in their favor. What's also interesting about these different forms of magic is that they all seem to parallel a certain type of society or societal setup that we've seen in reality. With Arcane, it seems to be similar to the Industrial Revolution, where everything's very mechanical and cold and logical and set up, but it doesn't really have a lot of empathy for humans, and it's still working out a lot of deep kinks. Fel is more based on World War II Germany, being the focal magic for the main antagonist of the stories, the demons, and being connected to fission energy, which was originally researched in World War II Germany. Holy magic is based on fusion, which hasn't been achieved yet, but is thought to be one of the major pieces for society to become more of a utopian future. It definitely correlates with the light, which in the stories are the natural good guys who seek to create a more utopian, peaceful future. Shadow magic doesn't have a specific scenario that it parallels, though it is set up to be the opposite of holy magic. So while holy magic is pushing for a utopian future, shadow magic is pushing towards anarchy and chaos. Nature magic is based on druidism. It is of course cast by druids, so that's a pretty clear parallel, but it's meant to be a more primal, spiritual, early human era of magic, instead of the more technologically focused ones that we've talked about just a little bit ago. Elemental magic is very similar, but it's based on paganism, specifically New Age paganism or spirituality, which focuses on talking with spirits and various forces throughout the world to conjure spells. It's all focused on weaving through the energy of the world and spirits and various other things like that, instead of focusing on pure technology. With these parallels, it's easy to see how Blizzard would approach scenarios in the future, mainly focusing on Fel and Holy as things are getting more and more futuristic, but it could very easily bring up a parallel between the bad parts of the druidism or paganism parts, or even seeing some of the positives of a more chaotic society rather than the very specifically regimented one. They have a lot of options for thematic ties here, and it could really be an interesting insight into what exactly they plan on doing in the future. Now, some of this may seem a little bit odd. This seems a little bit too similar to how scientific processes act in our current world, with of course the exception of elemental magic. But this comes to my second major point about the world of Warcraft. Many of the things that I talked about in this video already happen in our world, but we don't see nearly the same kinds of effect. This is due to two major reasons. One, we don't have a super efficient material such as mana to power these effects. Two, the fabric of our world is a lot more stable than the fabric of Warcraft's world. We can see evidence of this with the destruction of Outland and the sundering of Azeroth. Outland was torn apart when a few stable wormholes placed too close together were activated all at once. The resulting force literally destroyed the entire planet and reduced it to shards. While wormholes are powerful, and these wormholes were very powerful in the context of that, a stable wormhole would not have the same kind of destructive effect on our world. Of course, this is theoretical, I might be wrong, we don't know enough about the details of this, but if a wormhole was stable and didn't affect anything outside of it, it could not have the force to tear a planet apart, even if a couple of them were together. Now, a black hole would definitely have that power, but this is assuming that the wormholes were completely stable. As such, the very fabric of each of these worlds needs to be more fragile in order to allow this kind of destruction to happen. The sundering of Azeroth happened when a major source of energy imploded on itself. While this implosion was the biggest in Azeroth's history, it still tore the entire landmass of the planet into 4 pieces. While it would have created a big effect, probably separating out a chunk of the continent, it wouldn't have created such a major effect in such a dramatic way. Over time, maybe the continents break apart and move apart as it happened in our world, but it wouldn't have happened with that single implosion. Even the meteor that killed all the dinosaurs didn't break apart any of the continents in our world, which would have a very destructive force, maybe even more than the implosion in Azeroth. As such, we can conclude that the fabric of reality in Warcraft is a lot less stable than it is in our reality. Therefore, it takes much less energy to produce any and all of the effects in Warcraft than it would in our reality. It's hard to know the exact weakness of the fabric of reality in Warcraft. They don't exactly give us any numbers to play around with. Maybe some of you that are more math inclined could figure it out. But when you look at all of this, it surprisingly fits together. It's interesting to see how they continue with this idea, and maybe we'll see more interactions with different kinds of magic and even continual mixing of magic. Or, maybe they'll just completely ignore it and won't care about it at all. But, we can dream, and we can wonder, and maybe we'll figure it out on our own. Hey everyone, if you liked what you see, please leave a like and a comment down below letting me know what you think. Maybe you disagreed with something, maybe you did agree with something, or maybe you have additional thoughts, so make sure to talk about that down below as well. If you want to see more videos by me, I try to make a video every single week, so please hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. And if you could spread this around and make sure more people see it, that would be absolutely fantastic. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.